All right, guys, welcome back. We are currently on chapter 20, page 184 of The Barren Grounds by David A. Robertson. They are now on their quest. They've left the wolf behind in the tent, bandaged, and they are on their way to the summer grounds where Ochek is looking forward to sleeping under the stars for the first time since he's been young, since he's been a child. So here we go. Chapter 20. It was like another world on the other side of the mountain. There were more trees, as though they'd come to bask in the air, and they were fully alive. The snow was damp and shallow, and halfway down the mountain they came across a stream that had formed as it melted. They would find, as they went farther, that the stream fed into the river they spotted from atop the mountain. They began shedding layers of clothing, and eventually stuffed all the winter clothing into one of their packs and left it hanging on a tree, to be retrieved on their way back to Mizwa. The journey itself was faster, not only because they were heading down a mountain, not up it, and not because the weather was forgiving, but because they were excited for what was happening around them and what lay ahead. By mid-morning, they'd come to the foot of the mountain, and they stopped there to eat. They made it a quick meal so they could get back on foot and to the cabin as soon as possible. Nobody seemed to care that this meal was the last meal their rations could provide for them. Hey, that's all. They're done. That's all the food they have left. Why don't they care about that, though? Because they're coming to the time of summer, where the food, the berries and the plants and the game to hunt, to eat, will be plentiful, okay? This is how it used to be, Ochek said after they started walking again. Patches of grass were sticking out through the snow. The closer we are to the green time, the more I can remember. He bent down and picked a blade of grass from the ground. When we were out on the land, we had only the next meal. If we didn't catch anything, we didn't eat. It's the way it was. Chaos. Long ago, Eli translated for Morgan. What he's trying to say, in his Ochek way, is not to worry, Eric said. If you were worried at all. I've been on the land, just like this, Eli said. You were happy on the land when the land was only snowflakes and ice, Ochek said. It all feels like home, Eli said. If I had a choice, though, it wouldn't be in the middle of a blizzard. So they're talking about how Eli loves being on the land and being part of the land and feeling connected to the land. No matter if it's winter in the blizzard or summer, that's just where he feels at home and at peace. Though he does say, I would prefer it when it's nice outside. Oh, good, Morgan said. At least I know you're not bonkers, even though it looked like you were trying to make friends with that wolf. Everybody deserves a second chance, Ochek answered, before Eli could. As they got farther down the mountain, they could see an actual path in front of them that wound through the woods, and a thin line of water they'd seen on the mountain had now formed into a brook. Seeing for the first time an opportunity to drink something other than melted snow, they rushed over to the fresh water. Morgan and Eli drank so much that they felt like bursting. It was cold and refreshing and like nothing they'd tasted before. We'll find something for dinner, Ochek said. The water means there'll be four-legged ones. I won't have to steal from your traps anymore, Eric said. And I won't have to almost eat you. I guess we're all happy then, aren't we? Eric shoved Ochek playfully. However, I have a feeling you just might miss me, oh grumpy one. Ochek grinned. You just might be right, oh annoying one. At midday, they came to the place they'd seen from the mountain, where the snow ended, almost in a straight line, and gave way to the green time. They stood there with their toes on the line and pointing towards the thick, long grass, the brook and the flowers by its banks, and the trees with their fullness. It was all too much for Ochek. He placed his paws on the other side of the line before anything else, then his forehead, and he started to sob. The other three knelt beside him and placed their hands on him for comfort. The land had started to come alive as they walked down the side of the mountain, but where they were now, the warmth really began. Morgan stroked Ochek's back, his body now half in the green time and half on the other side, and she could feel the difference in temperature on the back of her hand. On one side of the line, it was like a cool day in spring. On the other side, a summer day in June. The other two must have noticed this, because soon they weren't comforting Ochek, but testing the sensation of moving their hands from one side of the line to the other. Then, all at once, they started to laugh, and even Ochek's sobs turned to deep laughter. The animal being straightened himself, but was unwilling to fully cross over the line, as though it was a sacred place. Wonder and awe stuck in the air and fell over them, just the weight of it, until a snowball struck the back of Ochek's head. He whipped around more surprised than angry. What was the... As soon as Ochek had spoken, and before he could react, another snowball connected with his face. Bits of snow clung to his fur. Now he did look angry, but this lasted only until he saw Eli's enormous smile, which was infectious. He backed away from the group into the cold side without any one of them noticing. So Eli stuck and went to the cold side and made a snowball and threw it at Ochek. Ochek licked away the snow. Just what do you think you're doing? It's a snowball, Eli said. Try it. But we have important work left to. Another snowball hit Ochek on the shoulder. Morgan had a mischievous look on her face and snow on her hands. Eli and Morgan reloaded with a snowball, swiping their hands across the ground and fashioning the collected snow into perfectly round balls. It looks like we have a mutiny! Eric stood beside Ochek. She watched how the Foster siblings had made their weapons, and she made one of her own. She held it at the ready. It appears that we do. Ochek made one too. And there the four of them were, the animal beings side by side and facing the humans. Each had a snowball in hand, cocked and ready to throw. Each side waited for the other to make the first move. What followed was the most epic snowball fight that has ever been fought, either on Earth or a sky, with both teams standing strong, bravely getting hit, throwing as many possible at the same time and laughing the whole way through. And at least for the time being, there was not a care in the world. The wolf was at the top of the mountain, recovering from his wounds, and the man was still too far away to hear their battle. When it was over, all four of them ended up on the ground, laughing hysterically, with the area between them completely cleared of snow, as they used it all for snowballs. They were soaking wet, and their stomachs hurt from laughing, and each one of them was utterly distracted from the last and most crucial part of their journey. Eventually, without a word exchanged between the four, just knowing looks, they remembered what needed to be done and felt ready for it. It was like their fur had given them the energy. It was like their fun had given them the energy of a full night's rest. They got up, stood side by side with their toes on the line, crossed over it, and continued towards the cabin. So now they've crossed into the summertime. They didn't head there directly, Ochek made a point of stopping several times and didn't seem to care about prolonging the last leg of their journey. He stopped at the banks of the river to pull sweetgrass because all they had back at Mizwa was one braid of it in the council hut. He stopped to eat berries at a tree and to load some in his backpack to bring home to the elders. He stopped to collect some cedar leaves and bark, which he stored with the sweetgrass. I've not seen any of these things fresh since before the white time, he explained. They weren't more than 100 yards from the lake that surrounded the island the man's house was on, when Ochek stopped again. This time, it wasn't to marvel at the most mundane thing, like a dandelion or something of the sort. Rather, he had a confused look on his face, which soon gave way to concern as he carefully observed the world around them, as far as he could see. "What is it?" Eli asked. "There's no game," Ochek said. "Not a four-legged creature on the land, not a bird in the sky, not one fish in the water. Nothing." He turned towards them. "Have any of you seen anything?" None of them had. "Maybe we just missed them all?" Morgan said. "You only just now started really looking, after all," Eric pointed out. "Well, look now," Ochek demanded. They scanned the area carefully, the water and the sky and the land. They could see a long way in every direction. Ochek was right. There was no game to be seen, and so no game to be caught. "This doesn't make sense," Morgan said. "Where could they have gone? Where else would they go?" She ran over to the river and peered into the water, hoping to see something, anything. But the river was empty, just like the land, just like the sky. She sat on the riverbank. The others sat beside her. Okay, so they're there. The weather is beautiful. There's things to eat like berries, leaves, plants. But there is no game. There are no animals. There's no fish. There's no birds. There's no land animals around that they could hunt to eat. So something is wrong. Okay, that was chapter 20, part 1. We'll have part 2 next. Bye, guys.